All right, we're going to try this. My computer is really lagging. So anyway, GDP by countries and states. There's some directions, which are right here, and a starter file, which is right here. So the first one that we would ask you to make are two maps, or one map and one column chart of the GDP of all the countries in the world collected by the CIA. The GDP stands for Gross Domestic Product, and it's the total of all the goods and services amassed by a country during a year. And so go to this link, and this will be where we get our data. And what this does, it just gives you a dollar figure to kind of just see where every country is at. Now, all 229 countries are represented here, and you can certainly start highlight. You could download the data, but we're not going to today. Just highlight from the word rank, and just highlight down a little bit to say maybe just the word Japan here. And what you can do then is go to the bottom of the document you lit up, and then you can go to the bottom of the document by going Control down arrow or Command down arrow. And you're down here at the bottom. Hold down the Shift key with your non-mouse hand, put your cursor at the end of the last line, and click, and you'll select everything in between. Now, could I scroll down and done it? Yes, but this is a kind of an easier way. So to copy this, it's Command-C or Control-C on a Chromebook. And let's paste it in. It should just be a straight Control V or Command V. And if that doesn't work, you can try using, delete that and try using Edit Paste Special Values Only, which is Command Shift V. If you can't get that to work, let me know. I can send you the file if you need it. Here I'm going to make it a little bit wider so I can read all the dollar figures here. And same thing here. I can make that wider so it fits. Really, the only two columns we're interested in are B and C. To make the first world map, you just highlight B and C. It's already sorted for you. It's in the order of gross domestic product, and the largest is in China. So you highlight B and C by clicking on B and dragging over to C. That will work. And then you want to insert a chart. It'll probably default to a pie chart, something like that. But what we can do is convert this to the chart we want, which is a world map. So scroll down here and there's map. You can hit customize and change the colors. I'm going to do dark blue for the largest GDPs, a medium blue for the middle, and then on actually just almost white for the bottom. So you can see a lot of the wealth in the world is concentrated in certain areas and not in others. Move this to its own sheet. Now, I'm sorry, I'm kind of off the page here, but let's see if I can raise that a bit. Here's sheet 1, that's our data. So I'm just going to call this World GDP Data. And this first chart that we made is the World GDP map. Okay. And also, so it just shows you that China, the United States, and India have the larger GDPs in the world. You can see here Russia, it's actually pretty far down on the chart. All right, so let's look at the top 20 countries in a bar chart. So going back to the data, and it is sorted, so we can just pick the first 20. You can't count the header rows, so you start at B1 and highlight down to C21, so for Egypt. So now let's make a chart of that. And this is a column chart like this. Okay. Move it to its own sheet. And I can move this over here. Sorry, I'm off the screen a bit. This would be world GDP top 20. And here we want to definitely, this is top 20 countries for the GDP. And we got this from the CIA. And you can see the United States and China are pretty far ahead of everybody else. It's kind of surprising, China being several times larger than the United States, but still as a GDP just a little bit higher than ours. If you wanted to change all the colors of these columns, you certainly could right there at this point. You can say, hey, I want them to all be this kind of blue. Well, same kind of blue, right? Maybe this kind of green. And then you go, hey, I want to change the United States. What you do is click on that one once more. That's the only one that's now highlighted. And you could change the United States. All right. So we have a world map showing where the highest GDPs in the world are, and there's the top 20. All right. Next, what's really interesting is if you look at a different source. And so the second one that I want you to do is to look at GDP per capita. And what the CIA has done here is to take the regular GDP and divide it by the number of people in the country that year. Okay? So GDP per capita, if you take into account the size of the country and their GDP, you get a completely different list. So instead of just this really large number for China and the United States, you're now seeing that other countries are coming up to the fore. Okay? So for this one, let's do the same thing that we did before. We're going to highlight all of these. Now I can highlight down, or I can just stop at some point, let up, do Command down arrow, scroll back up a bit, hold down the Shift key, and click here at the very end. I can copy that, Command C, go back into here, add a new sheet. This sheet is going to be world GDP per capita. It's per person. And that is this data. And if all goes well, a Control V or a Command V should bring that data in. Okay. Again, the only two numbers two columns we're interested in are B and C, and this is already sorted for us. So if I highlight B and C, we can first make that world map. That will be very different from the other one. Change that back to a world map now. I'm going to use the same colors as I did before. And move this to its own sheet. Just make this a little bit lower. Move this up a bit. That's better. This is world GDP per capita. Map. And you can see here Ireland has a high number. 139 is the highest. That might be difficult to find in here. Like Liechtenstein is below Germany, and by Austria, is it? Yeah, I'm having a really hard time even finding that. So these some of these countries that are scoring very high in the per capita, you just really can't see them because they're small communities. Okay, so I don't think I can even bring out Hong Kong here. I can try. It would be about here, wouldn't it? Yeah, I'm not seeing that. which doesn't mean it's not there. It's just I'm having a hard time finding it. What would be more telling, although this is pretty interesting when you kind of map it out this way, it's very different from the map of just regular GDP, isn't it? And that's where we were trying to drive home here. So let's look at the bar chart. You know, this is the top 20 here. It's countries you tend to recognize, right? Well, watch what happens when you make a bar chart of using this data. So starting at B1 and going to C22, or C21, excuse me, they're your top 20 countries in terms of GDP per capita, per person in the country. And you get really completely different results. Watch. So you go to Insert Chart. We're doing a bar chart of the top 20, and here they are, okay? Notice that it's missing that header, C1. That would be per capita GDP. So this guy would be called GDP. This is per capita. This is in billions of dollars, I do believe, it looks like. Oh, no, this is the actual money per person the GDP breaks down to. Sorry. GDP per capita, top 20 countries. And if you take a look at these countries, they're very, very different. So I'll move it to its own sheet. Move it over here. And it's going to be named similar to this. So what I can do is copy that, come over here, paste that in, and then this would be top 20. What's interesting here is if you go to edit chart, you'll notice that none of the numbers are below 50,000. So what I can do is double click over here to the left and change the minimum value to 50,000. And you get a more dramatic looking chart. It's the same information. So this breaks down per person, and you can see Liechtenstein, Monaco, Luxembourg, Singapore, Ireland, Qatar, Isle of Man, Bermuda, Switzerland, Falkland Islands, UAE, the Cayman Islands, Norway, and the United States is here. So of that other top 20, this is like about the only one, the United States here, which I'll change the color, is on both lists of top 20. So if I go to the world top 20 here, we're the second. But if you factor in how many people are in our country, we're actually 14th or so, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 13th. So pretty interesting statistic, very telling. Notice Germany, China, they're not on this list. India, not on this list. So pretty interesting. GDP by person. Okay. Lastly, we're asking you to look at the same kind of thing, but for states now. They put the data all on one page, which is fine. Let me just make sure I've labeled everything here. Yep, I have. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 now we have. So we're going to do a few more maps. We'll need another sheet to put that data in. So let's get a new sheet going. Add that right here. And I'll put it at the end, if it shall let me. Maybe. There we go. And this is the United States world GDP and world GDP, excuse me, United States GDP and the United States per capita GDP, okay? So this is the United States data. And it actually has both the regular GDP and the adjusted one for per capita per state. So Let's grab that data now. It's right here. It's on a site called Wise Voter. May not be primary, but I did want you to see some things when you don't get data that the way you want. You got to clean things up. So here it is. It starts with this little pound sign here, and it goes down to here. Again, I'm going to let up and just scroll down to the bottom, hold down the Shift key, click at the end, and now I have it all highlighted, and I do Command C or Control C if you're on a Chromebook. And we paste this guy in. Now it came in like that. That's not what we want, so undo that. You can try Edit, Paste Special, Values Only, Command Shift V. That did work for me. If you do paste and it comes in all blue, you can delete that and try Command Shift V, Control Shift V, and you probably get the results that you want. Okay, the reason I chose this data is because it's wrong in the sense that it's very difficult to make a chart out of because of all these words they put here. That's wrong. You don't want that. And what you want to do is up here say this is what it is, and that way there's United States dollars. That way there's no confusion, because right now if I tried to make a chart of this, it would complain that there's no data because there's these words in here. So I want to show you how you can quickly get rid of this stuff. So this says 3.5 trillion, but I want to express it in billions. So they're like these guys here. So for these first four, I got to convert the trillions to billions. So 3.5 trillion would be 3,500 billion. Okay, and you notice the number turns to the right. Same thing here, 2100, 2,100. Billion is 2.1 trillion. So this is 1900 and 1300. Okay. Now I need to get rid of all these billions, and that's easy to do. Click on the C to highlight the entire column. In pretty much any document like this, the directions here, or a spreadsheet, under Edit will be a Find and Replace feature. You'll use this a lot in your lifetime. So you choose that, and whatever you have highlighted, that's what's going to be applying to. Find. Well, I want to find a space and then the word billion. So I type in the space bar key and then BILLION. Now I can replace it with something, but I don't want to replace it with anything. I just want to get rid of it. So leave replace with alone and just hit replace all. Now all those billions or billion is gone. Hit done, and you can now chart this. Okay. So just to see where the GDP is, just in general, it's going to be in those really large states, and this is already sorted for you. So the first one that we're going to make is the map. So come here and make a map of this. You got to go to Customize, Geo, Region, and change region to United States. And I'm going to use the same color scheme as before. So you can see the concentration of the GDP is definitely in those football states. So let's move it to its own sheet and give it a name. This is United States map, United States GDP, just a regular map. Okay. I should probably call this GDP data. Okay, and so we have this map. It looks like this. You notice if you put this over California, it's 3.5 billion or trillion. If you look at the top 20, that would put you about right in here. You'd be just after Russia. So if California was its own country, it would have the 7th largest economy in terms of GDP. All right. Just kind of interesting to see. Well, let's chart that out, the top 20 of this. And so let's just verify that that's the case. So we go down here to 21, Wisconsin, and let's make a bar chart of that. Here she blows. Let's move it to its own sheet. This is United States. Sorry. Something like that. GDP by state. So United States, regular GDP, top 20. Okay. And good old Colorado is right there. I'm going to change the color of all of these things. And I'll just make Colorado a different color. So that's where Colorado falls in the top 20 GDPs. We're in the list. And, it's dictated by size. Well, one of the things you can do is take that into consideration and do it per capita. Take the GDP for each state and divide it by the number of people in the state. And that'll get you a GDP per person, essentially. And it's very different from what you're seeing here. All right? So let's go back and get that data. All right, so we got, just make sure I have everything I want here. Yeah, okay, so we got the top 20 and then just the map. Okay, I'll tend to put that there. All right, now let's go get the other data. All right, the other one is actually B and D. But if I go about sorting this group right here, it'll ruin my previous maps. So a trick you can do is simply copy this data, B, C, and D, Command C, come over here and paste it in. Exact same data, right? Well, now I just want to get rid of the regular GDP. We just did that one, so I'm going to say click on the column header for that and say delete that column. So now I can sort this. It's not in order right now. As you can see, the numbers are all over the place. And so I'm going to highlight these two, which is just a copy of that previous data. And so it's you highlight both F and G, and you go to Data, Sort Range, Advanced Range Sorting Options. Yes, you have a header row. You want to sort by GDP per capita. Okay, highest to lowest. All right. Well, the first one that's kind of jumps out at you is this District of Columbia. It's kind of an outlier. We don't want to use this data. It's just too high of a number. It doesn't really match everything else. So highlight, in this case, F2 and G2, and you should be able to say Edit and say Delete and move the other cells up. They come up. So now there's a complete different top 20, that's for sure. But let's just do a map of it right now first, okay? So again, come down here and make a map. You do have to change this to United States under here. And I'm going to use the same color scheme as before. And moving this to its own sheet, you can kind of compare it to the other one. It's pretty interesting. And so this is, move that over there. This is United States GDP per capita map, okay? United States GDP per capita by person map. Okay. And what you should see is that if you take the regular money, this is the distribution, but if you average these numbers out by the number of people that are there, you divide the GDP for each state by the number of people in it, you get a much different result. North Dakota has a lot of revenue from oil drilling, and there's not a lot of people there, so that's why their GDP is so high per person. Okay, California's pretty high up there, 89,000. Washington's way up there as well, 90,000. We're a little bit further in the middle. Texas is lower than that. So even though Texas, I think, in the top 20, Where was that? Over here. You know, it was California, Texas, New York, Florida, and all that. Well, let's put this in order now and do the top 20. So we're going back to the data, and let's just do the top 20. So that'd be down to row 21, ends with South Dakota. Make a bar chart of that. And again, if we move this to its own sheet, no numbers less than 50,000. And so I can say, hey, let's start this at 50,000 by changing the minimum value from 0 to 50,000. Looks a little bit better. And where's Colorado on this one? Oh, we're right here. That's not so bad. Let's just change the color of everything. And then I'll put Colorado as a different color. But now if you look here, it's just really spread out so differently. California is now 4th when you factor in the number of people in their state. North Dakota is 5th. You know, it sometimes helps not to have a lot of people in your state, and when you divide the GDP by that, you end up a per capita figure that's a little bit more telling. So this is United States top 20 in per capita. And I know that was a lot of charts. I found it just so interesting, though, when you compare the per capita to everything else. So this would be United States, GDP per capita, per person. Top 20. Texas is way down here. Interesting. They have a lot of people, even though their GDP is so much higher than everybody else's. But when you take that per capita into account, it's so cool. Well, that's what I was looking for. I think that's 11 sheets, which is a lot of work. Try to do what you can with it. Make sure things are labeled. Thanks for watching this video.